So Nintendo's E3 presentation was quite interesting, eh?
Yeah, they went in a completely different direction from every other presentation this year, and I mean, honestly, I think it worked.
Yeah, they had that robot chicken kind of look to it with all the claymation and whatnot. And they were really poking fun at themselves a little bit and going with some of the jokes that people keep making about, like "Where's Mother 3?" and all that other stuff. And Mario getting all upset because there were going to be no Mario games. I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, a lot of the time you could fairly say that Sony and Microsoft don't really get the joke. Nintendo seems to be going the other way. They get where they've succeeded, and I think they get where they've failed. And so they're give them credit for, if nothing else, they're trying something different. And I think this year, yeah, it worked. Instead of doing some big over the top presentation, they dialed it down and they presented stuff that nobody else was showing. And by that, I mean actual games.
And a Reggie versus Iwata fight scene to pimp Smash Brothers.
Well, that too.
Yeah. Speaking of Smash, I mean, obviously that's the big game that Nintendo's really kind of focusing on and putting all their, banking all their resources on right now, coming out sometime this fall. I don't even think we don't have an official date yet on that, do we? It's coming sometime this holiday season.
I feel like it's just going to magically appear out of the ether.
Yeah, pretty much. And that the 3DS Smash Brothers version is supposed to be coming soon. Although I think it was supposed to be out by now, and it's getting pushed back. And I guess they just want to make sure that everything's right. And the 3DS Smash looks interesting. It's gonna be similar, but it's also gonna be different because it's gonna have a couple of different modes that you're not gonna get on the Wii U version. So, kind of looking forward to see what they do, and especially I want to see, looking forward to see how they handle online multiplayer too.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you could have just done the same game on both systems, there is a distinct difference to the 3DS, and it's nice to see that recognized. And also, of course, if you make it a little bit different, there's enough of an incentive for Smash fans to get both versions of the game, which they probably would have done anyway, but at least, throw them a bone and make it a little bit differently.
Exactly. And the other big news regarding Smash was finally we're going to get the chance to import our Mii into Smash Brothers, which apparently almost made it into Brawl, but they couldn't quite get it done the way they wanted to, and this basically turns it into a de facto creative fighter mode. So they even on the presentation itself, they were showing different guys, different people they created that could be joining the game. All you have to do is have them as a Mii on your system, and you've got creative fighter.
Yeah, I'm kind of nonplussed by that. The novelty of the Mii kind of wore off for me, 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah, I mean, even just from a visual standpoint, they're so kind of plain. As much as the Microsoft Avatar program really doesn't mean anything more than pointless microtransactions, at least those characters look more realistic. So so when I'm, for me, it's not such a big deal, but I like that at least, they're giving the creative fighter part is more interesting than the fact that it's a Mii.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that is going to be more interesting to people. Like, so what? Do I care that I'm in the game? Maybe, but it's probably more for that you could have that creative fighter aspect, so you can throw almost anybody you want into the game.
I will say this though. I am infinitely more excited about being able to fight as a Mii than I am about the next version of Sub-Zero fighting the next version of Scorpion. If we want to cross the streams there.
Well, hey, I mean, but it's really bloody and gory now.
But see that's right there. It speaks to what Nintendo did really differently and did well, is they showed the game being played, and they showed that there's, it's the same game. I mean, let's be honest, Nintendo is all about just iterating with their successful franchises, but there's always just a little bit of a twist to it to make it different. And, one of the twists this time is Mii's fighting. But look at then in comparison, we got a Mortal Kombat trailer that looked like it could have been a trailer for every single Mortal Kombat game that's come out ever.
But it's next-gen bone-breaking, yeah!
Yeah, so Nintendo shows actual gameplay and lets people see what the game is going to be like. Other games give us, there is a lot of violence, a lot of, body parts being ripped off and throats being slashed, and not none of it actually happening in games. So again, I give Nintendo full credit. They may not have come out with a lot of surprises, but what they just put out was solid, meaty content.
Yeah. The other thing they showed with the Smash stuff was the new amiibo, which is basically Nintendo's answer to Skylanders and Disney Infinity. And for Smash Brothers, it's going to be the first game that supports it. And apparently, you're going to be able to like level up and sort of evolve your fighter characters like Mario or whoever character if you use the amiibo. Is this just a way to get in on the craze before it dies out, just like everybody got in on the music game craze a few years ago?
I think so. I mean, I guess the story is Nintendo had a chance to have, whatever Skylanders became, Nintendo had a chance to have that first, right?
Yeah.
And they clearly missed the boat on that. And it seems like such a natural fit. Like, whether you're talking Mario characters or, I mean, I've always said, like, it makes way too much sense for a Pokemon game.
And none of the first run of amiibos are Pokemon either, from what I saw, unless they stuck a Pikachu in there that I didn't notice.
Yeah, I mean, there might be a Pikachu, but, you figure how insane Pokemon diehards are about collecting every one. They would do the same if there were toys. They do the same when there are toys. But I think the thing that I'm most curious about is how it'll work across multiple games. Because that's one thing that right now, I mean, yes, Skylanders and Disney Infinity work across multiple games within their series, but a Skylander only works in a Skylander platform game to this point. And ditto for, Disney Infinity 1 and 2. This is something different for Nintendo that they want to put. You can play it in Mario Kart, you can play it in Smash. We'll have platforming games. I'm sure it'll be part of Mario Party. Like, all of Nintendo's major franchises, these characters will theoretically interact with, and that might be enough of a differentiator. But who knows? We'll have to see. But I can safely say you and I will probably end up spending more money on these than we want to find out the answer.
Of course we will, because our children are greedy and we spoil them rotten. Well, I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure you're the same way. Who am I kidding? It's for I say it's for the kids, but I know a lot of it's part of it's for me and my collector tendencies.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too with some of these is they've got such well-designed characters, and that's where I think the Nintendo ones might kind of miss the boat for me a bit. Is the Disney Infinity characters and the designs for those have been really top-notch. And same with the Skylanders. I mean, there have maybe been a couple of Skylanders that have been not so great, but for the most part, like, they're really interesting, cool, unique characters. I kind of feel like, hey, it's a Mario figure. That's where I'm kind of feeling, because these are characters, and then you can say the same with the Disney Infinity ones, and I wouldn't argue with you on that, but like, they didn't just do a Mickey, they did Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey. It's something a little bit different, and I don't know if we're gonna get that from Nintendo. We're gonna get fairly generic, figures, but again, give me the gameplay, and I really don't care what the figure is like.
Yeah. Well, let's move on then to some of the games that were announced during that presser. One of the first games they showed was Yoshi's Woolly World, and that's coming sometime in 2015. A lot of stuff actually coming in 2015. Yoshi's Woolly World is one of them. They kind of took the idea behind Kirby's Epic Yarn, and now they've applied it basically to essentially Yoshi's Island game, because it looks very similar to a couple of the Yoshi's Island games I've played so far in terms of some of the core mechanics, though I'm sure the yarn aspect or the wool aspect is going to be utilized a bit more heavily now.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo has a monopoly on adorable, and this game just, like you said, Kirby's Epic Yarn was just adorable to look at and to play, and it looks, this one looks the same way. It's Yoshi games are always fun, they skew a little bit younger and a little bit easier. But this game just, I mean, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And this is, and that's Nintendo's edge if they can exploit it, is, they don't have to compete for 1080p, 60 frames a second, maximum polygon counts. They have the ability to make games that look fantastic, but in a different way. And you don't see that kind of thing or that kind of emphasis on the other consoles. And I mean, part of it is you don't have the franchises that support that on, Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft. Like, I remember even talking at the launch of the Xbox One, talking to one of the developers for the Xbox One version of the Skylanders game, and he was telling me like how much better they can make the graphics, and they can do more with the animation and more higher resolution. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm thinking like that's not what I care about with those games. And I mean, I don't care in general. Like, game looks good if it looks good, regardless of all those all the stat sheets.
Yeah, a 1080p coat of paint though sure looks nice, especially with the way that Nintendo designs games, like like Epic Yarn. Like Epic Yarn, I think was the best game on the Wii, and I'm looking forward to see how they do this because like their art design was already so good. Now you're giving them more pixels to work with to really refine that. I mean, you're right. They could put this on a 480p box like the Wii, and it would still look good, but it's going to look even better on on the Wii U.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't have to compete with those, with the best of the best, and it can still be fantastic. And I think people, see that and they appreciate it. It's just whether that translates into sales.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, we're not talking about a game where you're shooting Nazis or zombies in the face.
Of course not. Another game that was announced was Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. For people who played Super Mario 3D World, there was certain levels that were featured what was called Captain Toad. It was a Toad character that couldn't jump. They were basically puzzle type levels, and you're trying to get as many stars as possible within a certain amount of time while avoiding baddies. Looks like they're going to make an entire game out of that because it was a fairly popular set of levels. That's coming holiday 14, so Nintendo is going to throw something at us. I'm guessing I would think this would be a downloadable game because I'm not sure how much mileage you're going to get out of that concept. Will it stand up to its own game? If it's short enough and at the right price, I think it could.
Yeah, and I almost wonder too if it's something that maybe not immediately, but down the road could perhaps have some sort of like build your own level feature to it. Because it just seems ready made for that, and certainly if they made it a downloadable game, gave people a level editor, it's the kind of smaller, fun experience that the Wii U doesn't necessarily have a lot of right now. What it has are a lot of $60 Nintendo titles, things the multi-platform titles like the Lego games or Skylanders or Disney Infinity, and then beyond that, I know there is an eShop, and I mean this might be saying more about my interest in buying a lot of stuff right now, but I have no idea what's on it. I just I have a limited amount of time for gaming that I can commit to certain things, and some of that's like whatever's on the eShop, not a clue.
Well, I've got actually right now Pushmo World and Shovel Knight, which are sitting in. I'm actually starting to work on and we'll have reviews of those on the website soon. So a couple of interesting eShop titles. I know they're trying to do some stuff with smaller titles on the shop. So, and some of those are the quality's getting a little bit better. So we may start to see them focusing on that a little bit more, especially now they've started to embrace indie developers a little bit more because everyone else is doing it as well. Speaking of create your own, another game they showed was Mario Maker, another 2015 title. And this is essentially, it looks kind of cool because like you can create your own sadistic Mario levels.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that one because it looks kind of cool, but it also looks like it might, be worth about 10 minutes of your time.
Yeah.
It has that like, and maybe it's just what they showed now, and this is why it's a 2015 title. It looks like, I can create levels that look like a game I might have played, 30 years ago.
I think you have to really be into that create, play, share scene to really appreciate. And it's a scene that I've never really been. I just want to play. I don't have time to create. I'm not creative. I just want to play stuff. And I mean, you could play levels that people have created, I would assume. But I guess for those who think they can design a better Mario level, that might. And you can do it in like the old school Super Mario Brothers aesthetic, you can switch between that and the Super Mario Brothers U aesthetic. With the more modern looking Wii U fresh coat of paint, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm just gonna withhold any kind of judgment on that to see what the final product is, because that really looked like a tech demo, essentially, a potentially interesting one. But I don't know. I mean, do I want to play a bunch of user-generated Mario levels? I don't know. It's not like I play Mario games for the story or the characterization, since they're pretty much non-existent on both counts.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to see more. I like the idea that it might exist,
sure.
But what, like I said, I see something like the Captain Toad, that makes more sense as a level editor potentially built into an actual game. This is just a level editor, and certainly not something necessarily that looks to be on the scale of like a Little Big Planet, or even just like an open sandbox thing like Minecraft or Disney Infinity, where you can just kind of make things.
Right.